Hey there guys, Raymond here, also known as Rayvision, and welcome back to the first ever top 10 things. Actually, not even a top 10, 10 things. The reason why this week's not a top 10 list is because this week we're talking about 10 things we want to see in future racing games. The order in which they're placed on this list is irrelevant. The thing is, we're talking about 10 things that we would like to see in racing games, and all of them are of equal, or some maybe more important, but all of them are appreciated. For that reason, I can't really find myself to give them an order. That being said, this list is made out of both user recommendations and my own personal opinion on things. So if you disagree or agree, please let me know in the comments down below. As well, next week we're going to be counting down the top 10 greatest racing games ever. And if you have any recommendations for those, please let me know in the comments down below, because I really need your help with these. These are games that could have shaped your childhood, that were booming in the industry, or just special in a certain way. So just let me know what you think about that. So all this having said, let's get into it. So the first thing that I want to talk to you guys about today is something that I find is lacking. And some games have done this to an extent, and Forza Horizon 3 has sort of implemented it with their customizable bucket lists and all that. And Hot Wheels, you could change some of the effects on certain tracks, but what I really want to do is, for open world racing games, I would love it if you could create your own races, right? Me and Nick, in our challenges, we're able to create our own races because it's just the two of us. But if you're trying to do that with a lobby full of people, it's very difficult to coordinate that and make sure no one's cheating and everyone's going the right way. So I would love the ability to place checkpoints where I want on the map. I mean, in my mind, it's not that difficult, just to be able to, like, you know, put a checkpoint, put a checkpoint, put a checkpoint. And so that is what I would love to see. That having been said, I'm sure it's more complicated than I make it sound, but I think you guys can agree that this would be a really cool feature that would add a lot to racing games. Now at number 9, this is something that is more for me personally, and I don't know about you guys, but I would like a system that proper penalizes, especially in a simulating racing game. Specifically in a simulation racing game, a system that properly penalizes people who crash you out of the race. And this is extremely technically difficult, at least in my mind it is, to pull off extremely well, but a system that would force penalties onto players and affect their rankings of the race, or would take control of the car and force him into a certain position due to that penalty, because, you know, some people won't do the penalty as requested. And I would find that would make for such a far more competitive online experience. I'm not saying that the online experience right now is bad, but there's like a 50% chance of you getting murdered in the first corner or the first 5 corners. So I think that would be really cool and something that could build a lot on many different racing games. Next, we're gonna talk about a game mode. And this is something that I feel really passionate about, and in my mind it works perfectly, and I'm sure in reality it's far more difficult to execute. But Need for Speed used to have a cops and robbers game mode. At least when I played it, it did, when I was very, very young. And that was very fun, but I think they could make this far more challenging, make it a challenging online experience. And in my mind, it would be simple. The person running away would have a certain amount of health, right? But it would be a lot more than what the cops have. What the cops have is many cars with many lives. Basically, they have cars with little health but many lives, and they also have spike strips that they can deploy and other stuff that they can use. And the idea is just to create this really fun, challenging experience. So it would be like a lobby of, like, I don't know, like 6 people, and they all take their turns being the guy running away, and then everybody else is the cop. I find, at least in my mind, that would be a really fun way to do it. That having said, I'm sure it's far more difficult to execute, and I'm sure people have tried doing that, but that is something I would pay for. That is something I would love to do, because that's basically what me and Nick do all the time with the police chases and the teddy bear smugglers. And you guys love playing those game modes because we don't have them in games, right? So where are they? I want it. Like now, I feel like everyone wants it. Now, you might be thinking I'm running out of ideas and we're already at number 7, or only at number 7, but that is completely wrong. Next is something that I want to see, a game that I want to see come out, and I've spoken about this in last week's top 10 list, and that is, I want there to be a game that is released that is not a game that is released on a regular basis, but a game that is built on. If you guys have ever played Rainbow Six Siege, or Rainbow, I don't know what it's called, the Siege, the new one, okay? It is a game that they've constantly been building and adding to. If they did that with a racing game, you would end up with a game as good as Forza Motorsport 7 on track, as good as Project Cars 2 with a wheel, as good as Dirt Rally in rally racing, and you could add snow. You'd end up having the game with the most complete experience ever. And then if you wanted to add on top of that, if you wanted to, you could combine that with an open world mechanic eventually, or I don't know. But in my mind, just like constantly building on the game instead of releasing a new one, I would far more prefer that, because they're just releasing the games with the same tracks and the same cars with better graphics and physics, but apart from that, nothing changes. So I'd much rather have a game that they're constantly building to improve and further on, and I would pay good money for that, because that is an always improving experience. Now, this one is not something too bad. So in number 6, we're going to talk about quality of life. Fix the quality of life issues with your games. Not a lot of racing games have these issues, but I don't like the trend I've seen in the past year where games are releasing unfinished. Forza Motorsport 7, Need for Speed, I'm talking to you guys. And the reason why I'm talking to them is Forza Motorsport 7 released with no features. It just basically, they released with the bare bones that they could to get the game out when they needed to. Probably to compete with Project Cars 2. And Need for Speed Payback released without an online free roam, which for an open world game as it is completely unacceptable in my mind. So stop pushing, especially if they're AAA titles. If it's a greenlight project or something that, you know, you're developing and you don't have a big studio backing you, not an established franchise, fine, that's okay, I'll accept that. But if you're a AAA title and you're releasing me an unfinished game that I paid full price for, no thank you, not happening, goodbye. Now, the 5th thing we want to talk about is Forza Horizon 4, because it might be bad of me to assume this, but I'd like to think Forza Horizon 4 is coming. And guys, never assume it makes an ass out of you and me. That having been said, it is my belief or thought process that Forza Horizon 4, just more customization please, thank you. I mean, they've been a lot better about improving, adding certain body kits, but if you look at Need for Speed, it's nothing compared to it. That having been said, Need for Speed's car list is lacking because they focus so much on the customization aspect. It's a bit of a trade-off. So I'd like there to be still a very strong car list, but it doesn't have to be 600 cars, right? You start hitting 300, 400 cars, that's a solid car list right there. You have a room to integrate pretty much everything, and then you can add everything else with car packs, and then focus on adding customization in there. I want to be a racer. What's wrong with that? At number 4, and this is something that people have recommended and something that I agree with, and it is, I want a challenging experience, okay? I don't want a frustrating experience, I don't want an easy experience, and I understand you wanting to deliver a fun experience, but for me, a fun experience is a challenging experience. And the most challenging experience I've had so far in recent times is GT Sport. Because there is no braking line, and I've always raced with braking line, right? But they give you braking points with the cones laid out around the course. So you have an idea of where you're supposed to brake. And my thought process is in this. Racing with the braking line is boring, but trying to race without it is impossible. So I would love games to have a system, implement a system that helps players learn how to race without a braking line. Based on how many times you've raced a certain track, the braking line will slowly disappear, or there's other things you can use. It's basically, the goal of the game would be to make the player be able to race tracks without it by the end of the game. That would be fun. I would thoroughly enjoy that, because then it provides a challenge, that extra layer, and it's a lot of fun that way, because you're not just doing the same thing, you're trying something new, you're progressing. Speaking of progression, number 3, let's talk about AI. Yes, this is fun. Yeah, Forza does have the Drivatar system, and I do think that's really cool. There are some issues that are with it, and I've spoken about them before, and some of you may recognize these. But one of the issues that I have with it, and in other games too, in Need for Speed, if you set the AI on easy for off-roading, it's too easy. If you set it on medium on off-roading, it's like racing the hard AI on street racing. And if you put the hard AI anywhere, you have to upgrade your car like 50 levels above the enemies or the other people you're racing to be able to stand a chance against them, which in my mind is just stupid. I want a difficulty system that adapts to the racer. It's like you don't choose a difficulty, the game adapts the difficulty to you. Now, I say don't choose the difficulty. Of course you can choose, but I would love something where it's like constantly pushing you to strive to improve, and so that you're always in the thick of it. Because in Forza Motorsport 7, often what happens is if you play the most difficult difficulty, good luck not happening. The AIs are ridiculous. If you play the difficulty before that, you'll be able to pass almost everyone except the top 3, who will be like 30 seconds ahead of everyone, including you, which is still impossible to beat and extremely frustrating because it's not a tight race. It's not a challenge to find out who goes in first place. It's either you're winning or you're not. What I want is it for like the field to be more close, right? For it to be constantly challenging you, for it to be like centered around your driving skill level, so that it makes it not that you can win, not that you have to win, but if you race really well that specific race, you will win, but that there's no satisfaction removing from not winning. That is what I want. Now, I know I've been saying a lot of really complicated, abysmal stuff throughout this list, and a lot of it might be technically demanding, others might not. That having been said, here at number 2, I want to talk about something simple. Try something new. I don't know what that might be. I don't have any idea what that might be, but surprise me. Be happy. Crew 2 really surprised me at E3, and I was happily surprised. I thought that was really cool that you could do all those different kind of vehicles in one map. My only issue with it is they're trying to do too much. And what I mean by that is I feel like the physics are going to be heavily hampered. That having been said, I'm still going to play the game because it looks like it's going to be a fun game. But I don't like the driving physics in the Crew, right? So if you are going to do something different, imagine Forza Horizon physics, and then you add, I don't know, helicopters or planes or some other form of vehicle, and the physics are equally as good, and it doesn't downgrade the physics from other things. What the Crew does is they make a massive map and they added all the vehicles in the world, which is fine, but it affects the quality gameplay experience instead. So what you have is an ocean as wide as the Pacific Ocean, but as deep as, well, nothing. And I'm not saying that the Crew 2 is going to be a bad game. I'm sure it's going to be an excellent game, but I would like to see something bridge the gap between those two worlds. And at number 1, this is actually the only thing that I'm going to talk about that actually takes priority over everything else, is if you're going to implement a pay-to-win mechanic, don't. If you're going to include a microtransaction mechanic, make it reasonable. Like, and I say that in the most sincerest way possible. Like, Forza Motorsport 7 added microtransactions. You don't have to use the loot boxes. That having been said, I don't like how they implemented the driver gear, and the reason for that is you can either choose between money to help you progress in the game, or buying a car to help you progress in the game, or driver gear, which has no effect on your play performance. So the only time you're ever going to get driver gear is at the detriment of your own gameplay experience, in my opinion, in my perspective. That's how it is. And unless you spend money for it, you're not going to go and get those. That's my experience. And Need for Speed has a pay-to-win mechanic, as some of you may know. I'm hypercritical. Need for Speed is a great game. I'm just hypercritical of that kind of stuff because it doesn't need to be there. I know they want to make more money. They're a company. That's their motto. I understand that. But I would like them to do it without, I want to say, without getting in on the gameplay experience. I want to take Overwatch for an example, and some people don't like it because it is the one that mass popularized loot boxes, but you can get cosmetic items in Overwatch from both playing the game or purchasing loot boxes, right? But either, you don't have to make a decision between you progressing in the game or getting the cosmetic item. You can get it by progressing. It's not something that you have to trade off, it's something that you're given. You're just not given to it as fast as if you were to buy it. So that is something that I would like to see. Well, guys, that's going to be it for today's top 10 list. I know it's been quite long-winded, and some of you may agree or may not agree. Please let me know what you think of what I've said in the comments down below. Agree, disagree, and feel free to poke holes where you see them. That having been said, next week's top 10 list, we're going to be talking about the top 10 greatest racing games. And please be aware that this list will probably get a lot of hate because someone's racing game won't be in it. So if you want your game to be in the list, please recommend it. And also, please subscribe and follow me on social media, as I will be posting links to the polls so you guys can vote for what your favorite games were. All that having been said, my name's been Raymond. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. And as usual, I will see you all in the next one.